So thanks for being here tonight. Also want to recognize University of Arizona Freedom Center, which is where we are located, and Intuit Education, which is one of our partners that also has lessons related to personal finance and entrepreneurship that might be able to help you in the future as well. From the University of Arizona, if you are interested in getting a master's degree, we have a Master's of Study in legal studies and, I guess law is the short word, and economics. It's totally online. You can work on it at your own pace, and it really ties in things about law and economics and business that we should understand. It was created with our state legislators in mind, because we often get politicians that don't really have a good economic and legal background. And we wanted to help them be smarter as they help serve us here in Arizona. But we love having teachers participate, and feel free to share that information with any of your friends or colleagues that you think might be interested in it as well. Social studies teachers that might feel like that's great content for them. So my name's Robin. I have been with Take Charge Today since 2015. And love being able to share their resources with others. I am joined tonight by Tiffany. Tiffany Kuramajian was one of the original people that started with Take Charge Today when they were located in Montana. We both are here in Arizona. And just last year, we hired 3 teacher trainers from across the United States to help us do workshops and conferences with you guys so that we can get out in the United States and share things with each other a little bit more. So thanks for joining us. Hopefully you will continue to see us throughout the United States as we come to conferences in your states and at some national conferences that are out there as well. So I'm going to start with this question. Tonight I'm going to ask you to share some things in the chat as we go through. So as you look at these 4 products on the screen, give me an idea of what you think they all have in common. Good guess, Louise. That's okay. That's what we want. Just your educated guess. Anybody else want to take a guess? What do you think these 4 have in common? Oh, Shark Tank. That's a good thing. There's definitely one on there that came from Shark Tank. So I'm going to give you the reveal. These business founders actually all started before they were even teenagers. So they started when they were very young to come up with these business ideas, and they all had a different reason behind it. So the one on the left that created Nobo, those little dissolvable packaging, he came up with his idea because of something they were doing in science class in high school. And he's like, we can come up with a way to help us be more eco-friendly, not have all these plastics. I love that idea. And I really wanted that to move forward because it's been around for a while and it's just kind of stalled. I think there's lots of questions about how it works and how do we containerize these little gel pods of things that we have. So we see something similar in our washing machine and dishwasher pods, but nothing that goes into shampoo and conditioner and ketchup and mustard and water, which are all products that I saw in there. Some of you might recognize Moe's Bows from Shark Tank. So he's the cute little kid that was in there when he was young and loved bow ties and has a great successful business now. Our Me and the Bees young entrepreneur, she started her lemonade business when she was 5. She actually got stung by 2 bees in the same week and started thinking about how do we save these bees? What do we need to do to help the bees? So she took her grandma's lemonade recipe and started this business that has some things that give back to the bees in it as well. And then on the right-hand side, you see these 2 young brothers. They had a friend who had a disease and was going through some treatment, and they just wanted to cheer him up. And they also learned about how expensive it was to be going through some medical procedures. So they make these really fun, creative socks. Their business is called Are You Kidding? And they have different socks that then have money that go for cancer research and other things like that that can help them. So I love sharing things like this with our students because often they're stuck in thinking, I'm not an adult yet. I don't know how to make all these decisions, but you don't have to be. You just need to have the people and the mentors around you that can help you be successful. These are just some ideas on why young entrepreneurs are successful. They definitely are creative. They think outside the box. They're not held back by money and having to make a certain amount of money because they live at home and their parents are there to help support and take care of them. And oftentimes they are really passionate about a cause, a social cause. I know when my daughter was 5 years old, she saw on the news information, a news story about kids that were getting wigs made because they had cancer and they were losing all of their hair. So as a 5-year-old, she decided to donate her hair to Wigs for Kids, and she donated her hair every 2 years after that. So that was something that she saw as a young kid about, I want to try and fix this problem. And that's some of the passion that we see with these younger children and teenagers as they start thinking about becoming a business owner and doing things to be able to change the world. So when we think about that, what we're doing is comparing divergent thinking with convergent thinking. Those of us who are adults, we tend to look at what is wrong, what is the most sensible way to solve this problem or to deal with an issue, and we come up with one choice, whereas children are more imaginative. They can find the possibilities and the things that are on there, right? So we look at a paper clip and we're like, we're going to use a paper clip to hold our papers together. That's what it was designed for. That's what we're going to use it for. And kids will think of different ways to be able to use those paper clips in a fun and innovative way. So our young people have these incredible imaginations. And if we can encourage them and motivate them, we're going to have some great products that are out there for us to use. So if you are familiar with our Take Charge Today lessons, we actually have some lessons that have been on the website for a couple of years that are entrepreneurship focused, and they are specific for different CTE content, like understanding managers and leaders or understanding different business ownership styles. And I felt like we really just needed some lessons for teachers that are not CTE business teachers, but maybe they teach photography or they teach automotive. So their content knowledge is about what they're teaching, but they do want to help their students understand how they can turn the skills that they're learning into a business for themselves. Plus, we have a lot of teachers in Arizona that are teaching gifted kids at the middle school level. And so the middle school can't handle as much information necessarily as high schoolers do, but they still can learn how to be entrepreneurs. So that's kind of where these 5 lessons came from. Even though I have them numbered on the screen, they do not have to be taught in any particular order. The intro one, if you haven't talked about that yet, that just gives some background to entrepreneurship. But then you can teach the other ones in any order. None of the lessons are dependent on another one. So if you already have done idea generation and creativity with students, you might just look at what are the activities that we have in there and totally skip that lesson, but you need to teach them about market research and how they understand what customers, their potential customers are really looking for. So that's what we're here to talk to you tonight about, are these 5 new lessons that we've recently added to our website. If you are new to our lessons, I just want to take a minute to talk about all of the things that we give you in our lessons. We have our awesome, pretty cover pages that if you're just trying to find a lesson on a specific thing, you can take a look at that. We have some information about why this topic is important for our students to learn, what the teachers are doing, what the students are going to be doing. All of our lesson plans have the materials, the standards, just the content objectives and facilitation options. They all have a vocabulary activity because we really believe that we need to support our ELA learning by the students. So let's help them learn the vocabulary in terms that they need to understand. All of our lessons have at least one anticipatory set activity. Some have up to 3. all have at least one conclusion activity. Some have up to 3. We always have a couple of different options for assessments. We love projects and the hands-on things that you can do with the students in the classroom. And everything is customizable. So when you download our PowerPoint, you can change it any way you need to. You can delete slides, add slides, split it into 2 or 3 different lessons. Our worksheets are downloadable so that you can adjust those if needed. They come in the student downloads, so you can download all the student activities and put them out in your LMS. Our goal is to make your life as easy as possible as teachers. So we give you kind of the one-stop turnkey lessons with everything in there, and then you choose what works for you. These are the advanced level entrepreneurship lessons. Just wanted to point them out in case you haven't taken a look at them. They are intended for students at our advanced level, which is typically 10th through 12th grades, but you can definitely pull little pieces from them that you could use if you're using the introductory level lessons instead. The concepts are more complex. We talk about ethics in there and social responsibility. We teach them about leaders and managers and the skills that are needed to be successful in those occupations. We talk about sole proprietor and partnerships and corporations and franchises. So things that fit in with some CTE business standards might give you something new to look at. And a lot of them will have some kind of workplace connection. So how do I behave as an employee? What are my ethics that I need to have? And how do my values fit in with jobs? So that's just kind of a brief overview of what those lessons include in case you haven't taken a look at them. These new lessons are intended for younger students, so grades 5 through 8, or for like that photography teacher who wants to do a little entrepreneurship piece, but they know photography, they don't really know the business side. These lessons fit really well into that. The concepts are simpler, the lessons are shorter, the PowerPoints are shorter, and lots of visuals that can just help you walk through students through the ideas. We made sure to include a whole lot of application ideas to give you lots of choices of how you can have students use the material, learn the material, think about things themselves, think about with a partner, think about in small groups or class-wise things, and included several concepts and projects that they could do for the school. So getting them to think outside your classroom on what they're doing, but think school-wide and how they can do something that really matters and that can be applied to a real customer per se that's out there. So let's take a look at some of these introductory lesson highlights. If you have questions along the way, please go ahead and stop me and I can answer them or put things in the chat and I will respond in there. So this first lesson on Introduction to Entrepreneurship really just is kind of an overview of entrepreneurs and the role that they play in our society. And what are the characteristics of successful entrepreneurs that we see based on successful businesses that we have in there? And then we talk a little bit about just the value that we as customers get from the entrepreneurs that are around us in our society. This is a slide that comes from this lesson. And so we teach the students a little bit about an entrepreneur. Like I said, it's basic. So entrepreneurs are these people that are willing to take a chance to make some money and possibly lose some money. And as we think about them, entrepreneurs are creative and innovative. They're looking for opportunities often. They see problems that are in their lives or in their society as opportunities for them to come up with solutions. We know that lots of entrepreneurs like to be their own boss and work their own hours. And these are people that are willing to put in successful, hard work to be successful. So this is a slide, and you could have great conversations with your students about how many of these characteristics they already have. In the presentation, we give them an example that they may have seen. So Hans Dost was on Shark Tank. He was out hiking one day and he wanted to take a selfie, but he wanted it from farther away because he wanted to capture more things that were in the background. So he propped his phone up in a tree, had the timer set to take a picture, And when the timer went off and the picture was taken, that jarred his phone enough that it fell onto the ground and his screen broke. So he decided that he wanted to come up with a solution. So you see his product is called the Tentacle. It is a combination of octopus and phone holder. And so he knew from studying octopus in college that they have those awesome suction cups. And so you could use those arms to wrap around a tree branch, to attach to a window, just different ways to keep your phone safe while you're able to take that picture. So some of your students may have seen that product being sold on Amazon or other places. He has made lots of different versions of the phone holder since then, but they could check out the website and see what is available. Also from the presentation is a way for kids to think about items that are around them. There are so many innovative items that we have around us in our classrooms and that they probably have in their homes as well. So during the presentation with the students, this is a chance to stop and think about something that they really love having in their home. I would love for you to share in the chat an item in your classroom that you are grateful you have available to use as a teacher. Love those, right? We love our technology and the way that technology has changed our lives as teachers. When I first started teaching, I was teaching kids how to type on a typewriter. And that was a long, arduous process for kids. So when we got computers and it had spell check on it for them and they could go back and make corrections, it was so neat. You might, at this point in the lesson, want to just have a talk with students about innovation and what does innovation mean? And I always like to use the refrigerator as an example to share pictures with students of refrigerators from long ago that were small and you had to defrost the freezer and didn't have all the bells and whistles we do now. I remember having a fridge in college that did not have a light in it. So you kind of had to know what was in your fridge. Now we have ice dispensers, water in the door. We have smart refrigerators that tell you when your eggs are going to expire. And so you could really take the kids on kind of a scavenger hunt to see how refrigerators or another product that you're familiar with has changed over time. Yeah, thanks for sharing all those. I love whiteboards as well. They are much more teacher friendly than our chalkboards were. And sometimes not as easy to clean, but like having those. So that's part of that lesson. And another lesson on our idea generation and creativity, you can see on the left-hand side that this lesson really is focusing our students on how do we solve problems? How do we think creatively to solve problems? Victoria, I agree with the clicker. I love that too. The students, one of the activities in the lesson the students can do is a problem solver's journal where they can keep track of a problem and then try and come up with that. So one of the activity ideas is that they can go observe the lunchroom. What's happening in their lunchroom that they see as problems? They can take time to talk to other students while they're there, or talk to teachers and say, teachers, what are some problems that you have at school? So we like to get them out of the classroom and just thinking a little bit bigger about the things that are going on. One of the creative examples that is part of the PowerPoint that you see under the creative or what can students do is a scribble drawing. So we give you 2 or 3 ideas about students can make a scribble on a paper and they pass it to somebody else, and that student has to turn it into something. Sometimes we have to do really silly activities like that with our students in order to get them thinking creatively, because some kids just like to be really linear, and we have to help them get out of their comfort zone in order to do that. This is a slide from that lesson, And we're going to teach the kids just this simple step. With high schoolers, we might do something that is a little more complex, but at this introductory level, we want them to be thinking about how do entrepreneurs come up with ideas? And so they might think about something that's going on in their own life that they love, that they have a problem with. I like to always have my students think about the classroom chairs that they sit in. Do they love those chairs, or is there something that they would like to change about them if they could? So anytime we can bring it to real world and something they're experiencing, they can do that. So they can think about something that they are experiencing that kind of irritates them, something they see in the community that they want to address, or something related to something that they used to do. So bring it back to them, let them think about their own lives and what they can deal with. This is the simple 3-step process that we include in the lesson for them to think about. So they've had a chance to think about this activity. What do they observe with others in that activity that maybe is irritating them? What is a problem that they have? And then we want them to brainstorm some solutions. So you could have them work with a partner, work with a small group. Some kids might want to just do this on their own. So that's a slide from the lesson. And this is the example that we give them, which is a problem that comes from my life. So I happen to live in Arizona near a canal, and our canals are cement that carry water for miles and miles and miles, but they're open on the top. And they have bike paths or walking paths that go beside the canals. So during certain times of the year, when I am riding my bike, there are these little swarms of tiny bugs that I can see coming. And sometimes I can't avoid them because there's a bike rider coming the other way. But you don't want to get them in your nose. You always make sure you have your mouth closed or you're going to get bugs. And so I just brainstormed, what are some things that maybe I could do to help solve that problem for myself and other bike riders? So you can see 4 different ideas that I threw on there. The kids might think, well, that's silly or that's not going to work. But what we tell them in this lesson is no idea is too crazy. We know that having a bed that tips up by itself is not something people would have thought of years ago. But as our lives changed and people had TVs, not just in their family room, but now in their bedrooms, maybe they didn't want to be laying down to watch TV. They wanted to be sitting up. So we want the kids to just be thinking about that. I am going to give you a challenge in the chat to come up with some ideas for a teacher problem. So this is the teacher problem that I selected. I don't know if you had it, but I often did. I'm carrying a load of books or papers from the copy room. I get over to my classroom and my door is locked and I have to figure out which key on my lanyard goes in the door lock because I don't want to put my papers down. I never did, but all my keys feel the same. So see if you can come up with some kind of a brainstorm idea on how we could solve that problem that a lot of teachers have. Good suggestion, Terry. Oh, I like that too, Louise. Yes. A texture dot. I like that, right? Not sure how that would stay on, if that might have to be a change to the way the key is made, or would it rub off, right? We don't ever put down an idea, but I love that the kids can just brainstorm and then we can think about how will this work, or what would be the best one to be able to choose. If you're still putting an answer in, you go right ahead. Sticky with sandpaper. Yeah, we could do that. Color code. Yep. I'm wondering if they should make the door key, the part of it that has the place to go on the key ring, maybe they should make that in the shape of a D instead of like a traditional square or rectangle or round key, right? Make it that way. So I would challenge your students, right, to think about a problem and then that they have in class and then just kind of brainstorm on it. The thing that always drove me crazy is kids putting their drink containers in my recycle bin or their trash that should not go in the recycle bin in there. I want somebody to solve that problem someday. So maybe a student will do that. Okay, next lesson, moving on, is a little longer than the other two because it has to do with market research. If students are able to come up with their own business ideas, they need to understand how important it is to do research. I used to do a market day at my school, and the kids could brainstorm their product that they wanted to develop to be sold. And every once in a while, I had a kid and I would just warn them and say, I'm not sure that that's going to sell very well, but they loved it themselves. And then usually after our market day, when it didn't sell very well, they say they should have listened to me. So that all ties into market research and finding out, are your potential customers really going to be willing to buy this product or use this service that you have developed for them? So we wanted to make sure that the lesson was in depth enough that the students could understand why it's important to do research, what it is, and what are some typical ways to do research, and how can you analyze your research in order to figure out if you're on the right path or if you need to make some changes. And it's always good, again, if you can help them prototype things or find examples of prototypes and how they've been tweaked and changed before they get put on the market, that will help them a lot. So throughout this lesson, I kind of focused on backpacks because I figure most students are familiar with those and they would understand why we can't make a backpack that is one size fits all. So I picked this slide to have the kids start thinking about, if I were designing a new backpack for elementary school students, what would kids want that backpack to be able to do for them? So most of our middle school kids are probably a little older than 5 to 11. They know elementary sized kids. They probably have seen some of the small backpacks that have been really popular in the last few years. They may have also seen some elementary kids wearing their backpack and it's so big that's hanging down to their knees in the back. And so we want them to just start thinking. And so this is one of the introductory slides where we're asking them to think about, how would we know what designs or colors, how long the strap should be, what is it that somebody in that age group can be thinking about being important as they design a backpack for them. And then we just tie in. You really don't know unless you do some research. And the research can be done in lots of different ways. So right from the beginning, we want them to just start thinking about that. We talk about the market research and how it helps the businesses to understand our customer needs, reduce their risks, so their chance of losing money or having a competitor that's already doing something. We talk about that, the opportunities that might be available out there because they have gathered research, and how it really helps them as a business owner to make informed decisions. So each of these 4 areas is discussed a little bit in depth in the lesson, so that kids will understand why those 4 things matter. One of the activities that we included is to get them to think about our customers. So at the high school level, we talk about who our target market is in terms of demographic, geographic, psychographic, and product benefits. And that was just a little too much for these younger students. And so we just kind of said, let's focus on age because that's important. Gender, because that's important for some products, where they live, so little geographics in there, how much money they make, how do they spend their time, and other activities that they are involved in. So in the PowerPoint with the lesson, this slide is in there. And so you can start with this slide, have the whole class chime in and think about it. And then we have given you 12 other kinds of chairs that you can put the kids in small groups. let them choose one of these chairs at random and have them practice that process. How do we describe those different types of customers? Because as an adult, and probably you as adult teachers, you understand that there is no one size fits all chair for everybody. And they will understand the difference between a gamer chair and a recliner and a desk chair and just all those different things. It really just helps the kids to focus on something that they're familiar with, but being able to think about what makes my customers different because they're purchasing this specific kind of chair. All righty, so I'm going to give you the chance in the chat again. Choose one of these 5 chairs and tell me a little bit about who that customer would be. So tell me in the chat as well, like if you pick chair number 1, do chair number 1 and then describe that customer a little bit. Yeah, chair number 4 is easy to pick out, huh? We kind of have seen those a lot. Yeah, Victoria, right? A professional. And maybe if they have parents that don't have those kind of jobs, that might be a little harder for those students. Thanks, Bonnie. We just got a recliner at my house. My 6-year-old grandson thinks that is the best place for him to sit. He loves it so much. Oh, yep. And I like that, Luis. Yep. 75-year-old grandfather who loves to read, maybe with a grandchild on his lap. So you get the idea, right? The kids are going to come up with ideas and then you can have them share their information and see if there's any overlap between different groups. Did they think chair number 11 matches what chair number 5 is as well? But we tried to pick some out and then they get a chance to say, well, when would they be most likely to use this type of chair? Where else might they use it so that they can start thinking and expanding their mind a little bit beyond who they think that ideal customer is. All right. These are the 3 market research tools that we chose to include in this lesson. There are lots of different ways that you can do research, but we didn't want to have this be a really overwhelming lesson. We wanted kids to be able to focus on things that they are familiar with. So most of them have probably already been asked to complete surveys. Observations are fairly simple and they do happen. And if you have them look at what's happening in the lunchroom from one of the previous lessons, then they're going to kind of understand what do I need to be looking for when I need to do an observation. Thanks for joining us, Elizabeth. No worries. And then focus groups is something that also they might be invited to be part of. I know in my school district, they have a superintendent's youth advisory council. So they're kind of like a focus group with kids from different schools. At a middle school, they might have kids in student council from different grade levels. That's a form of a focus group. So wanted them to find some things that they are semi-familiar with that goes with that. I don't know why I skipped something that was in here. So let me just talk for a minute. In this lesson, we give you teachers some data to actually use so that you can teach the kids about collecting the data, putting it together, but then also the analyzing piece and what are we looking for. So in the lesson, I created some fictitious data that was being done by a school that has an 8th grade year-end celebration. So the 8th graders who are graduating, going to high school, they have a little party for them at a bowling alley. And I created some survey questions with some data on how the students might have responded so that you actually can show the students a graph that includes the data. They can talk about what they were trying to learn, what did they learn from the data, and then how can that help them in making a decision. So at the end of all of those slides where they're evaluating their data, they have to say, what would they recommend to the principal of the school? Should we do this activity again next year for the next year's 8th graders? And if our current 8th graders are moving on to high school next year, maybe we need to let them know what these students enjoyed about the activity and what they didn't enjoy, so that as if they're doing a ninth grade social of any kind, they will kind of know what the students preferred and what maybe they can change for next year. So lots of information. This is a lesson that probably you would do over several days, but the students would get a chance to actually create their own survey and do something related to their own business if they wanted to something that's happening at school. You could do a traditional taste test activity if you like to do those in the classroom, where the kids are tasting different kinds of cookies or chips or pretzels or things, and they can actually gather the data and analyze it, so they're learning those process steps. This next lesson is probably the one that is the least entertaining for the students, but it's really important because we need to help them understand the power in creating a business plan and then understanding the financial piece of business. So again, these are simplified, but we wanted them to understand what they need to include as they move forward. So instead of doing a longer business plan that I would have my high school kids do, we are using this template from the Small Business Administration, where the students are just identifying these 10 key pieces of information that they would need to understand about their own business. So this is the example in this slide deck about a toy business. So we want them to understand and be able to explain who's their company, who are their customers, what is the problem that people are experiencing, and how does our product provide a solution for that? Who are the people that are part of the company? Who's our competition that's out there? Where's our money coming from? What are we spending money on? How are we going to market the business? And then what are kind of our key metrics, our milestones that we're going to measure? So the Small Business Administration has this activity that you could look at, and then we give you a template so the students can do that for their own businesses that they're working on. The other piece in this lesson is some pricing. As I've worked with adults and students in the entrepreneurship space, the money is the biggest problem and the biggest headache that a lot of them have. So in this lesson, we take the kids through some slides where they are selling cupcakes at a school activity. They have raw materials, the ingredients that they have purchased. They have their time and labor that they're going to put into making it, and they need to figure out how much are they going to sell one of their cupcakes for. We do talk about markup, and so you can help the students understand what is a markup. We can do a markup as a percentage. We can do a markup as a dollar amount. So on this slide, you have kind of the summary information from this activity in the lesson. Tell me, based on the numbers that you see there, how much would you sell one cupcake for? So you're making 36, and then you have your production cost, your markup. You need to decide that. What would you share, or what would you choose to sell your cupcakes for? I think somebody's pulling out their calculator. Ooh, Robin, that is a big markup. Between $2.50 and $5. It does depend on lots of factors. $2.50. Love all those, right? And the students will do the same thing. They will say, my cupcakes are going to be the most amazing because they have sprinkles on top of the frosting and the cherry on top, and I have to do that. So they can decide. So in the lesson, as we walk them through, we help them do a 50% markup. And the final price ends up at $2.01 plus some other decimal point numbers that go on there. So we do talk to the kids about, would you really want to charge $2.01 to your customers, or would you round down and just charge them $2? Also, the parents pipe up and they say, we think you can make more than 36 cupcakes with your raw ingredients. So then the kids can calculate it again, but now based on selling 42 cupcakes instead of 36. So you can walk them through the activity the first time, and then they can try it again themselves. We do have an activity in this lesson where the students are doing some math, doing some calculating based on some other items that are being sold. So we love doing things cross-curricular. We really like the idea of students understanding that math is not going to disappear when they graduate from high school, but they need to understand that. So if we can start simple with this kind of financial things, then they can learn some things that are a little more complex later on. Okay, and then we have this lesson on marketing your business. So this is different than market research. This is on how do we let people know about our brand and our business and the things that we are selling to our customers. So this is where students will understand social media. They probably have seen billboards. I know my grandkids saw a whole lot of ads come at them on their tablets during the election season. So they're usually familiar with different types of advertising and promotion that goes on. And so there are several different choices that you'll have within this lesson. We do teach about the marketing mix because we can keep it pretty simple with product, price, place, promotion, who our target market is. So going back to what they had learned previously about age and gender and income and where they live, that can be tied back in. We teach them about your unique selling point or your unique selling proposition. Most of the kids are familiar with a Venn diagram. So the thing that you really need to point out on this is in this Venn diagram, we do not want to include what the competition does well. We want to be unique, right? We want to be special. So we want to find a product and make it unique enough to fit what the customer wants and what we know how to do. But we don't want to do what the competition does. And so you could have some good discussions about different businesses that are selling similar products and what it is that makes them unique. And this is an example from the lesson where we have these two companies that are both selling vanilla ice cream cones. But you can ask the students to identify what's the USP, which is the free sprinkles that you get. And there's another example as well in the slide deck. All right, so let's have you guys thinking about USP for a minute. If this were your business, if you have this lemonade stand, what would you choose that would make your business stand out? So go ahead and throw an idea in the chat. This is your lemonade stand. What are you doing that is going to make you unique? Oh, yep. Organic, picked from the lemon tree in my backyard. Oh, basil. Curb appeal. Yeah, it's really good to help students understand. It doesn't have to be that my product is different. It can just be me. We have a lot of companies that did like a buy 10, get one free. You might be the only lemonade stand that is doing that. And we know from eating at restaurants, you can get strawberry lemonade and raspberry lemonade. So for this activity, you can put the kids in small groups. They can think about what are we going to do that makes us stand out and be able to share with the class. So love that. We do talk about promotion and some different types of promotion that's in there. And then one of the activities is to create a promotional tool for a school activity. So in a lot of our lessons, we will give you an idea. And then on the right-hand side of the lesson, we usually give you some other ideas. So for this particular lesson, the students can create a promotional tool for a school activity. And you see in the bottom, the lesson is written about doing an egg drop challenge. I loved cross-curricular things that I could do. My son is a science teacher and he teaches physics. So the egg drop challenge fits really well with what he does with his students. But you could pick a different promotional activity or a different school activity that you want your students to do promotion for. And then these are the 4 choices that we have built into the lesson. So they can make a flyer, they can record a video, they can just write an audio announcement, or they could do a sidewalk drawing. So things that would get people's attention about the particular activity that you would have them do. So besides this egg drop challenge that happens at many schools around me, can you share in the chat a school-wide activity that your students might be able to develop some promotional materials for? I love that, Terry. Yeah. Now, my grandkids just had a STEM night. I don't know if your school does anything like that. Yep, you could definitely have a market day where they can create their own promotional materials for what happens on campus. My marketing students, we often did promotion for prom. So we worked with student council and did that. We also did some things like during Red Ribbon Week, where we were promoting just healthy choices for students. One of my colleagues did the posters for like the dance concert. So they would create designs and let the dancers choose which posters they like the most. So lots of different things that you could do. Again, we just are trying to give you the ideas and give you a way to start on this activity if you don't know exactly what you want to do. But then you can always twist it to make it fit with your own school and what can happen. And all of our project-based activities like this do already come with a rubric. So you don't have to do the work on figuring out how you're going to grade it. All right. So that's just a little bit about those 5 lessons. I always like to just kind of stop and do a reflection. Hopefully your brain's been spinning while I've been talking and you've been thinking about how you could use some of these topics. How might you need to customize things for students that you have in your class right now? How could you turn them into a project? So I know we already have had in the chat, how could we do this? How could we let the kids start their own businesses and move forward? I read about a school in California that started doing, at their elementary school, started doing an activity, school-wide activity that was for the 4th and 5th graders. So they were the ones that got to start their businesses. And after COVID, when we were working on social emotional health, they decided to have one that was totally built around kind of pampering yourself. So kids could get a foot massage and they could get their nails painted. And there's just so many different ways that you could use that. Anybody else have ideas that you would want to share? Okay, before we wrap up, I just wanted to share with you guys where you can find these lessons on our website. So I'm just going to switch screens for a minute and go there because we have had teachers that have used our other lessons, and some of you might be new to that. So let me just show you where you can find these on our website. Once you log in, the easiest thing to do is to go down to this green search area and click on search for our free lesson plans. And that's going to bring up for you our major curriculum topics. And entrepreneurship is one of those that is listed right there. So when you click on that, all of the lessons that start out with entrepreneurship, those are those advanced level lessons that are in there. The other ones that are not listed with entrepreneurship at the beginning are these new ones that we have created. They aren't necessarily clear down to third grade. If you kind of pass this off to friends, just let them know it's really designed for 5th through 8th grade, but because of the way our website is set up, we couldn't really say we want to start here and end there. But really easy to find once you log in to our website and are able to look at that. Okay, any questions that I can answer before we wrap up with a couple of things? All right. Well, we hope you will use them. As always, if you find an error or you have a suggestion, will you just email us and let us know so that we can fix it? We know we're like teachers. We look at something 100 times and we always miss something that's on there. So we hope that you'll find a way to be able to use them and to give us some feedback. Make sure that you are following us on Facebook or Twitter. That's where we have our social media accounts and we post information about new activities that we have developed or where we're going to be for conferences. We appreciate you guys supporting us and being willing to join us tonight. So just stay in touch and keep supporting us and sharing our materials with others. We love helping teachers and are so glad that you guys were here tonight. Thank you.